we are saying is, state police, community police, they are not the solution to our problems. Let us be honest to ourselves. It is failure of leadership. The president is the solution to this problem. It is time for the president to act now. The country is going down. If you look at the social media everywhere, drums of war, civil war is gradually moving. You will see Muslim clerics, Christian clerics preaching hatred. You will see people talking about tribes anyhow. Garbage in, garbage out. If you put an incompetent person to head a place, it will not bring good result. So why are we keeping people if we know there is no good result there? So, Mr. President, is it the dividend of democracy that we are talking about? Killings every day? What kind of a country is it? What is the value of human life in Nigeria? What is the value? We should ask ourselves. Killings are taking place everywhere. We don't care. It is the primary responsibility of government protection of life and property. The APC convention, the police mobilizing 5,000 people in the place that is no more than 5 hectares. They are deploying helicopter. Throughout the killings in Plateau, did they deploy any helicopter? Did they deploy 5,000 policemen? How many policemen? How many hours did it take? When we come here, we talk. They say we are against government. What is against the government? If government is not doing the right thing, we will continue to talk. It is time for the president to act. He should sack the people that are not competent. He has said it so many times. There are some people that are not competent. Today, a lot of injustice taking place in Nigeria and we are keeping quiet. We must address this insecurity. If we don't address it, we'll wake up one day and we'll see civil war, or we'll see everywhere is blocked and people are being killed. We can continue to come here and be reading motions, passing resolution, 1 minute prayer, take emergency. These are the things that we've been doing for more than 2 years. What is the solution? The solution is on the table of the president, and it is time for him to act. Anybody can be a victim of what is happening. That is my route. I always go to Bauchi through that road, and I don't even carry much security men. So anybody can fall victim of what is happening. Mr. President, the amount of energy, the amount of resources our security agencies are deploying on politicians is enough to solve some of this problem. The kind of resources, the kind of people they are putting on politicians is enough to solve this problem. If it was political rally or what they say, you will have seen so many people there. You have seen helicopter, or you have seen policemen there. Some people that are not competent surrounded the president, and they are giving him wrong advice. Wrong. Some people that don't even mix with people. Some people that are hooked up somewhere in a small place. They don't listen to people. We are representing people. We always listen to the people. They call us. They tell us what is happening. Some people, you don't even have access to them, and they are the one advising government on what to do. We will continue to have this problem. And if this thing is a democracy we're craving, I have no this thing. I can one day stand here and resign, or I can put up anything. There is no, what is the dividend? Every day, this thing. Mr. President, as a solution to this, we must place value for human life. Even if it is 30 million, even if it is Muhammad, so that once they kill somebody, the government has to pay that money. Maybe if they look at the amount of money they are going to be paying every day, I think it will make the government to sit up. In Zamfara, just yesterday, about 40 people, this thing. If you charge the government to be paying 50 million for each soul, I think the government will wake up. We can't continue. Our people are being killed every day. They are being buried like garbage. You look at the people in the hospital, they are there, left on their own. So what is the value? We must ask ourselves, what is the value of human life in Nigeria? And every day, we keep seeing headsmen, Fulani, everything they call it. arrest the people. The work of the security is not even mobilizing. It's to prevent these things. It's not about telling us that after the crisis you have mobilized something. It's not the work. So we are here every day. We bring motion, we bring things. It is time. Everything is on top of the president table. A lot of things are going on, and he has to take action. If he doesn't take action, these things will continue to take place. This thing is something that we can solve. We have people that can solve these problems. But because of hypocrisy, because they don't have godfathers, they are being relegated to nothing. Today you come to the police are demoralized, no discipline in the police, because you create a special promotion that you keep promoting people that are giving money, people that are close to politicians, people that are close to you. Whereby some people are there in Maiduguri fighting Boko Haram, fighting so many things. Even their allowances are not paid. Somebody is sitting in the office every month. You are giving him special promotion, giving money. Without the police, we cannot achieve anything. No country will progress under democracy without the police. And there is no discipline there. The morale of the officers totally down. There was an officer that called me. He said because of that special promotion, he felt like joining Boko Haram. He said that is what he felt. And another policeman that met there's another policeman that met Senator Nala. What he told Nala, you can confide on that Allah, because of this injustice that is taking place. A lot of injustice is taking place in the country, and we are not addressing it, and we are thinking that we'll have positive results. It's not possible. We are not the only country that have God. Every other country, they are praying to God. Other country, every other person, they have God. We should do the right thing. We can't be blaming God. This will happen. We say, God. Prayer will not solve the problem, but we have to do the right thing. If we don't do the right thing, we'll continue. Unless we don't care with our people. You can hear the narratives of the DSP when he was talking about American citizens. If one American dies, either in war front or anywhere, they will spend anything to go and get that dead body. They can spend anything. They can protect it anywhere. He doesn't have to be in that country. Any country, they will move there to protect their person. Do we do it? Instead, even the people that are doing the right thing, we want to eliminate them. We want to fill their mouth. Which country is this? We have to do the right thing. If not, I see no reason why we'll continue to be talking about democracy when there is no democracy. The democracy is about respect to the rule of law, to the Constitution. Do we do it? Do we respect the Constitution? Do we respect the rule of law? Do we do it? So which one are we practicing? Why are we sitting here? Is it that all of us, we don't have work to do apart from this? We should try and form any kind of government that want to, but the democracy is not working. It's not working. If this is democracy, then it's a shame. This is not democracy. Democracy is something that at least the people will be protected. People are not protected now. Mr. President, I just have to sit down. It's not about passing resolution. It's about acting on those resolutions. The people surrounding the president should not look at the National Assembly. Even if they don't want us, let them look at what we are saying. Let them implement the good thing. You can decide to say you don't like me. No problem, don't like me. But the thing, if what I'm saying makes sense, do it. Do it. And this is the result of what is happening. This is the result. Because of few individuals, we have compromised democracy, we have compromised our security, we have compromised everything. When people make statements to say, do this, they will say it's enemy. Anybody now giving his own advice to the government, before you know, they say you are an enemy to the government. Is democracy not a government that people will advise? Because it's a representative government. It's government represented by everybody. We have every right when we're sitting. And when you are there, it's just like football. If you are inside, you will not see the mistake, but somebody that is outside will see the mistake, and that is the time maybe he will provide solution for you. So they are there. They will not see the mistake. Is it everybody that will get to the villa, or is it everybody that will get to the executive to tell them, this thing that we are doing in the National Assembly that cannot solve the problem? 18 months ago, I said the killings will continue, and if they don't act, the killing will continue. It's bad. It's very bad. We are not safe. If you think that maybe you are moving with a sarin, you are moving with a policeman, if they block it, you will be surprised the security men that they are protecting you, they will be the first people to run and leave you. They will be the first to leave you. So we are not safe. We should try and communicate and do the right thing. Thank you very much.